All right, it is time. It's 11 o'clock where I am. It might be afternoon where you are. So good morning, good afternoon. I am Ariel Zhang from the Animal Foundation, and co-hosting today with me is Allison Cardona from UC Davis. Hi, Allison.
Hi, everyone. So good to be here and so good to see so many folks coming in.
Yes, I love all of the new faces and all of the new people introducing themselves in the chat. So if you're just now getting here, introduce yourselves in the chat. We would love to hear from you. But first, we're going to start with the question of the day. And so last week when Allison and I were meeting, I am always just really inspired by Allison's grace and kindness and her willingness to help other people. And so to start off this week, we would love to hear from all of you how you might have done something for somebody else or had someone do something for you in the last week. This is such a community, and so we really just wanted to celebrate that. I can start. Ed Jameson took a last-minute meeting with me. I was just randomly in town, and he opened up some time to meet with me and give me a whole tour of Operation Kindness, which was really sweet of him. But we would love to hear from all of you in the chat, or even just unmute if anybody wants to celebrate what someone might have done for them last week, last month.
I'll start. I am new. I am a new executive director. I changed careers this past couple of weeks. It's been challenging, and I'm very excited to have had a lot of support from friends and other rescue members helping me get started, get organized. I've had some challenges already right off the bat, but I'm steadfast and heading forward. So I'm looking forward to officially being part of this community as opposed to having been a volunteer for 16 and a half years. So
yeah, welcome to the industry. I also came from outside of the industry, and I know how intimidating it can kind of be. So I'm glad to hear that you have some support, and welcome to the calls.
thank you.
Allison, what are we seeing in this chat here?
Somebody said their office was decorated for their birthday, even though they'd only been there for a week. Christina Ramirez. Someone flipped over a turtle. That's a wonderful act of kindness. Someone randomly, oh, Diana randomly gave you a cucumber. That sounds delicious and very refreshing. And Nancy, 40 dogs were chipped by them on Saturday, which is awesome.
That is amazing.
Elizabeth Laverty, her husband and her, or I should say, Elizabeth and her husband are celebrating their 20th anniversary as animal shelter volunteers this week. Congratulations.
Thank you for all of your work. Anybody else want to unmute? Maybe one more person? Throw some positivity into this call. No? Okay.
Happy birthday, Gina Knapp.
Happy birthday.
My neighbor weed whacked my front yard for me. I was pretty appreciative about that.
Yes. Yes. I love that. All right. Well, we will continue and get started. So anybody with national updates?
Hey, everybody, it's April from Adopt-A-Pet. We have some pretty exciting news when it comes to rehomes. So in late June, we actually opened up a filter for users that come to our site to actually search pets specifically that are being rehomed by private owners. And this caused a 100% increase in application on rehome pets. So we're still waiting to see what that translates to as far as adoptions, but this was a long time coming. We had a lot of people requesting it. It's finally out there. People can actually filter by shelter and rescue as well now. So hopefully we'll see more of those pets that are being rehomed getting adopted and not ending up in your shelters.
Hey, everybody, Kathy from Canada here. Humane Canada's 2023 Summit. Call for abstracts is open until September the 1st of this year, and the 2023 Summit is going to be held in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. So hope to see lots of people there that I see on these calls. And I will, oh, Allison's amazing. Thank you, Allison. Allison's already got the link for the call for abstracts in the chat.
Hey, if I can just follow up with a couple of really cool things coming your way from Maddie's Fund. Season 2 premiere of Maddie's Candid Conversations. And I don't know if any of you have met Elijah Bryce Middleton. He's director at Plainfield Area Humane in New Jersey. And what a fantastic guy. You don't want to miss this. I'll put the link in the chat. He's just such a fine person. And then our own Dr. Sheila Sagerson will do a webcast on August 31st for using care pathways to manage your shelter behavior program. So I'll put those 2 links in the chat. I hope you can join us.
I'll add one more Maddie's Fund update. This month on Maddie's Pet Forum, we are doing a resource drive focused on all things field services and public safety. So our goal is to gather all resources to support ACOs. So if you have any helpful items that your field services team uses, or if you're looking for a specific resource, please share them on the forum. I'll drop the link in the chat. Anyone who participates in the month of August is entered to win a $50 gift card just as a thank you for your time. So we've got some great handling courses that have already been shared there. So anything you can contribute would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
From the Humane Society of the United States. I just wanted to give a Beagle update, a very happy Beagle update. So as of last week, we placed 2,038 dogs with partners in 20 states. So we did that, and all of you did that in less than 4 weeks, which is insanity. So we anticipate being able to meet that 60-day deadline that we have to get them all removed. And that is only because of so many of you that have stepped up and tried to figure this out with us.
Hey, Ed Jameson, speaking for NACA here, just a reminder that the NACA annual awards nominations are open, and they are open till September 9th. So right through NACA.net, click on the awards drop box if you would like to nominate anybody for a NACA award.
Awesome. Any other national updates? No. All right, perfect. I am going to throw it over to Allison Cardona to introduce our speaker today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And so exciting to see everyone here and to see all the fire in the chat. Love seeing everyone participating. And this just fills my heart this morning. And what also fills my heart is that Diana Prado is here from Heart LA, which stands for Housing Equality and Advocacy Resource Team. If you don't know Diana, you are in for such an incredible experience. She is just a force of nature. She's an attorney and founded this incredible organization in Los Angeles, is an expert on housing issues, previously worked at the Inner City Law Center as a supervising attorney, and worked with LA Animal Services and Downtown Dog Rescue to create the Pet Resource Center in Skid Row. If you've heard her speak, you know that she knows her stuff and brings it and speaks the truth. And we're so grateful to have her here with her presentation today. So we'll do a presentation and then we'll have time for Q&A afterwards. Welcome, Diana.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you everyone for being here and starting off our Monday with like, yay, and our entire week. Speaking about my 2 favorite things that I'm passionate about, housing and pets. And so with that, let me share my screen and get this party started. Woo, it's a party. Okay, let me present. Oh, yes, present, just like this. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. Like Allison said, I am from Heart LA, Housing Equity and Advocacy Resource Team. And I am here today to talk about housing equity and advocacy and how pets and housing are interrelated. Yes. And before we start off in all of my presentations and in just everything in life that I do, I want to give us a moment to give a land acknowledgement. Heart LA is in the territory that's considered the nation of Tongva, the Tongva territory, the Tongva nation. I give a land acknowledgement, not only because I'm a housing rights attorney, but also in order for us to acknowledge and know and recognize the fact that this is not the land that we are on. We have taken this land. And so in speaking about housing rights and acknowledging that, I want us all to acknowledge the land that we are on. Wherever you are, you can text this number and you can find out what native land you are on, or you can also go to nativeland.ca and figure out what land you're on as well. And so with that, I want to talk about the doctrine of discovery. You guys are like, what is she talking about? I know. In talking about housing rights and talking about property rights, I want to first start off what is the foundation? How did we get property rights? Like, where did we come from? And so this came from 3 different cases, all the way back in 1823 through 1832 with Justice Marshall. And it's kind of pretty interesting, right? Because how we established property rights was something called the discovery doctrine, where because land was discovered, that's how we gained property rights, which is a little bit ironic given our immigration policies now in the United States, right? Of how that is. And so I start this off and I talk about this fact because our foundations, our underlying principles with property are founded in racism, right? Are founded inherently in the fact that someone came here, said I discovered this despite the fact that there was indigenous people here, and then took the land. That's the foundation of property rights. And it has to be understood and needs to be acknowledged. And perhaps it may rub a little wrong, or it may take a step back. And if that's so, great. Well, great. The truth is painful, right? And if we don't face the truth and if we don't look at the truth right in its eye, then we can't get past the fact of where we are right now. So I start this off, and I start off with the land acknowledgement, and I start off with where we are in the foundation of property rights in order to be able to go forward in the conversation, to be able to discuss how then we're going to be dismantling property rights and why we need to dismantle property rights and how housing and pets are interrelated. Because housing isn't a right. The moment that we established property rights, it became a privilege. It became a privilege, and those that did not have power, pretty much weren't white and weren't male and didn't have money, didn't have that privilege.
Oh, Diana, you froze for a second. I don't know if you can hear us.
Owners have their rights.
Oops.
Oh, sorry. Owners have their rights, and they're able to then evict people. These are stats from LA County. I'm based in LA County. And in 2019, 45,000, about almost 46,000 evictions were filed in LA County, which means that that's 5 families evicted every hour. I also want to point out the month. I'm going to give month data here because it's rather sad when we get a couple of slides down. So in June 2019, there was about 3,200 evictions filed in 1 month. Then we had the pandemic, and we had protections. We had protections for renters that couldn't pay their rent, which means that by 2021, evictions had gone down about 28% because of these protections, which led to about 12,000, almost 13,000 evictions that were filed, which is about 1.5 families evicted every year. In June 2021, that means that there was 922 evictions filed. And now let's flash forward to when protections have now been minimized. In 2022, we now find that it's almost 13,000 evictions have been filed through June of this year. And through June of this year. And then in June this year, we're back to pre-pandemic numbers with almost 3,400 evictions being filed in LA County. So despite the fact that we have these protections and we realized that it was important to keep people in their homes, and we realized because of the pandemic how important not only was it to keep people in their homes, but people and their pets in their homes. Nonetheless, because of these property rights, we now are back to pre-pandemic numbers in LA County with about 5 families being evicted every month. An estimated amount of 70% of households are behind in rent in LA County, which means that these numbers are only going to be skyrocketing. And just recently, I saw on Twitter that rents in the Kansas City metro area had gone up 26%. And this isn't just in Kansas City. This isn't just in LA County. This is across the nation. Across the nation, rents have skyrocketed. And what hasn't skyrocketed is the living wage. What hasn't skyrocketed, or the ability to gain employment. And so there is a disproportionate levels of rent that are rising that we aren't able to keep up with as renters. And so how does this all tie together, right? Here as animal welfare advocates, what you see, about 30% of pets are surrendered to the shelter because of a housing related reason. And so the question is, a person walks into the shelter and says the new owner won't allow them to have their dog. What do we do with that? Where do we start from there? What are the rights that a person with a pet has? So the first thing that I say is ask the question, did they receive any written documentation from the owner or management? Now, why is this an important question to ask? Because in every state, regardless of the process, there is a legal eviction process that every owner must follow, right? Now, are there what's called self-help evictions, meaning that an owner illegally evicts a tenant, takes all their stuff out, locks them out? Yes. Sadly, we don't even know the data on how many illegal evictions happen, let alone in California, let alone in any other states, because since it's done illegally, we can't track that data. There's no way to track that data. Unlike the evictions that are filed that we can track. But with that said, there is a process. And so I state this because a lot of times people walk into the shelter and let's say they've just been told orally, right? Just been told verbally from their owner. Oh, you need to get your dog out. A new owner comes in, you need to get your dog out. That is not legal. They can't just give them a verbal notice. And so that's a moment to be able to tell that person, you could take a deep breath. I'm like, because whenever I hear from a person that they just got a verbal notice, I'm like, oh, good, they're just doing things illegally. Whew, let's take a deep breath together, right? So everyone can take a deep breath. You can say, look, you have rights. That is illegal. You do not have to surrender your dog. They must give you a written notice. I also do not like to inform landlords of what their rights are or what the process it is that they need to follow. So I'm not going to go ahead and call the landlord and be like, you need to give a written notice. I'm just going to wait until that landlord provides a written notice. But there has to be a notice in writing. There's different days. Each state has different day, like a different number of days of when you need to. So and the notice is normally, particularly with pets, is you have in California, it's 3 days to remove your pet or move out, right? So let's say they get that written notice. Then they have 3 days. Once those 3 days expire, that does not mean that a sheriff is going to come out to lock them out. If we can look here through the eviction process, what that then means is that then the owner has an ability to pay, or if they're low income, they can file for a fee waiver. They have to pay to file what's called a summons and complaint, start the legal process in court. So again, the question being, is there a written notice, is really important because it determines where, if at all, a tenant with a pet is in the legal process. And it allows you to be able to then communicate and advise and counsel that person accordingly. If they haven't received anything in writing, great. Right? What are the issues that are coming up? Perhaps you can help address veterinary issues. Perhaps you can help address behavioral issues. Whatever it is that may be coming up. Maybe there's just no issues and the landlord is just harassing them, right? Then you can try to connect them with legal services or somebody that can help advocate for them pre the eviction phase. But even when the 3-day notice expires or however many days expire, the sheriff isn't going to come out. This is at the very bottom of the screen over here of what once the tenant loses. So the tenant has a 3 days, whatever days to, remove the dog. They don't remove it. Okay. Then a lawsuit is filed. They need to receive a copy of that lawsuit. They then have the ability to answer and participate in the legal process, right? And then that's the avenue. It's only until the very end that the tenant, either doesn't answer and loses automatically because they don't answer, or they go through the entire phase, and then if it is that they lose, then the sheriff will come out and lock them out. But it's really important to determine this, because a lot of people don't realize that just with that notice or without notice, that they are going to be evicted. A lot of tenants think that, oh my gosh, my landlord told me I had to go, so I need to go. And that's not true. There is a legal process in every single state, and the landlord needs to follow that legal process. The next question I would ask a tenant is, where do you live? And the reason that this is important is because there's different types of rental housing. So we have single family homes and mobile homes, apartments, and subsidized housing. And each one has their different types of laws that protect them per each state. So as we're doing this nationwide call, there's different rent control laws in different states. California has different rent control, San Francisco, LA, Orange County, and Santa Ana just got rent control. And so there's possible rent control, and there's possible, regulations for each type of rental housing. And subsidized housing is government housing, right? It's like housing provided by, funded by the government. So we have project-based housing, which is housing where a tenant lives in a certain area and has received funding to live in that actual place. Section 8 vouchers, meaning that a tenant received a voucher, and with that voucher, they can go to different places to try to rent out. And then we have low income tax credit housing as well. And those types of housing, they have their own types of regulations. In general, some main tenant protections that I want everyone to take away from is three different kinds. And the first one is called, the legal term is waiver, to which we call no takebacks. What this means is, if a tenant has been there for some time and they've always had pets, and the landlord accepts rent with knowledge of that pet, that landlord can't then a year later come back and say, nah, I don't want you to have a pet. That landlord has waived their right to say that there can no longer be pets, okay? So that's waiver. That's like no takebacks is what we call that in my non-legal terms. Retaliation. I get a lot of tenants that have lived in their units for quite some time and have never had any repairs, or all of a sudden have, or not all of a sudden, have some type of infestation. And so they ask the landlord for repairs. And so be it, all of a sudden the landlord, the minute that they ask for repairs, ask them that they need to remove their pet. That's retaliation. A landlord can't do that. And that is a defense, a protection that a tenant has to defend themselves should in fact the landlord attempt to evict them. And the last kind of like general one that applies throughout the United States is that there's no one-sided changes, meaning that the landlord can't just, even if there's a lease agreement that says, if there's a lease agreement that says that you can have pets, the landlord can't then just change that automatically without giving you notice first. And second of all, in some places can't even do that at all. If the lease says you can have pets, the lease says you can have pets. In some areas, the landlord giving notice can make those changes. It just varies state by state. That's why rent control and tenant protections, advocating for tenant protections in your city and county and state level are so important. And then just to highlight why this is so important, in California, we have the California Pet Friendly Housing Act. And this states that government funding housing, so subsidized housing, what I mentioned earlier, built on or after 2018, has to allow at least one pet. So this doesn't mean, this goes outside of fair housing laws. This means that every housing that's funded by the government built after 2018 must allow at least one pet. The third question that is important to ask is, who is the owner of the pet and what is the relationship? And the reason that I phrase the question this way is because if you're trying to ask a tenant like more legalese questions, one, it freaks them out because no tenant wants to be in court. No one was like, yay, let me go to court. And also it's like a little bit awkward to ask questions like, do you have a disability? Are you a person with a disability? Right? And so in asking who is the owner and what is the relationship, it kind of brings out a more communicative style of being able to talk to the tenant. And the reason this is important is because it does take us to fair housing laws. So for reasonable accommodations, I'm just going to discuss the federal laws. Each state may have their own specific state law. In California, we have the California Fair Employment and Housing Act. I'm just going to talk broadly about the federal laws. So we have the Federal Fair Housing Act, and then we have the Americans with Disability Act. And these both cover what's called assistance animals. And there's two types of assistance animals. There's service animals, which are covered under the Americans with Disability Act. Those require specialized training. Service animals, the easiest go-to example is a seeing eye dog, right? A dog that is trained specifically to help someone, someone that is blind or has poor eyesight. But they specialized training. Support animals require no specialized training. They just are support. They're our support. And so that's covered under the Federal Fair Housing Act. The big difference between the two is that support animals aren't allowed in public accommodations. So that is like a confusion that a lot of folks have. They believe that, you can bring, Fido into the grocery store, and you can't unless Fido is a service dog. And so what is a reasonable accommodation? So it's a change or an exception to the rule that's necessary and reasonable, meaning that what we're discussing here is a no pet policy. If there is a policy that says no pets, if a tenant has a mental or physical impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Well, that's a lot of words. What does that mean? That means, let's say that a major life activity is walking, talking, working, speaking, eating, breathing, anything that, conversing, being able to be social with others, anything that is a life activity that allows you to participate. If there is a mental or physical impairment that limits one or more major of those life activities, then the tenant is then able to ask, and if they have an animal, they have, an assistance animal, they're able to ask that provides them with support. They're able to ask for a reasonable accommodation. And what they have to prove is that that animal alleviates symptoms of their disability. So what does this mean? Let's say that a person suffers from severe anxiety and severe depression, and their anxiety doesn't allow them to go outside. They're so scared, they're like, I can't go outside. But they have Pepper, and Pepper's real peppery, right? She's like, wow, I need to go outside. I need to go outside. And so the person by force has to go outside, right? To be able to walk Pepper. Pepper alleviates that person's severe anxiety by getting them outside every day and being able to support them in that way. So it's tying it in. So that's why when you ask somebody, oh, who's the owner? A lot of the times you get, oh, actually, the owner is my child. My child loves this dog, and my child actually has ADHD. They're like, oh, wow. And so they help, your dog helps them, helps them with their ADHD. Yes, they do. Having that conversation, you're able to untangle and pull out the threads to be able to get the defenses that you need to be able to know what protections are available for that tenant. I want to state that online certificates and our registrations aren't legally recognized, meaning those websites that say, oh, get your ESA certificate here for $50, $75, $150, fake. Don't do them. That's nope. Waste of money. Donate instead to awesome organization. Don't do that, right? Any tenant or any person that, tells me that they got an online certificate, I'm always like, not only are you low income, you already just spent money doing that. I have to like I'm holding myself. I literally I'm holding a bar. I'm like, no, don't do it. Those are not legally recognized. What is legally recognized? Emotional support letter, a support letter, and it can be from someone that has knowledge of the individual's disability. It states that the support animal alleviates symptoms. It provides contact information to verify the letter. It's signed and dated, right? And I want to, as we're discussing this, talk about healthcare providers that won't provide a letter, because this is coming up more and more often. And it's a bigger conversation that we need to have with the healthcare community, honestly. But what do you do? So I want to, the law states that if you collect disability benefits, meaning you can self-verify. What does this mean? If you can accept disability benefits from the government, that means that you've already been determined that you have a disability. So there's no reason to have a physician to determine, or a reliable third party to state that you have a disability. It's been determined, okay? Or you can get an individualized assessment from any reliable person, third party, a social worker, a peer group member, even a family member, right? It gets a little in the gray area when you're trying to get family members to provide that. But the main point is determining that you have a disability. That's what needs to be verified. And once that's verified, the private medical documentation or the private medical information is only limited to exactly what is that disability that requires one to have an emotional support. The next question that I get asked a lot of times is, can you have more than one ESA? Yes. And so let's go back to the example of Pepper, right? So Pepper was well peppery. And this person who had severe anxiety and depression, they didn't want to go outside, but Pepper got them outside. Woohoo! Also, this person has a dog named Lolly. Oh, Lolly. Lolly just lollies around. Lolly doesn't want to go outside at all. Lolly hates going outside. Lolly just lays. And whenever this person gets a little bit sad, Lolly comes over and sees that. And Lolly lays on her lap and just lollies there with her. And it makes her feel less depressed, right? Lolly provides a different service and alleviates the symptoms of this person's disability different than Pepper. Pepper gets her outside. She's like, I don't want to go outside. I don't want to go outside. And she's like, too bad. Pepper's like, tough shit. You're going outside. Okay. Lolly, on the other hand, is like, no, stay here and lay with me. So you can have more than one ESA. You just need to show how they alleviate the symptoms. So how you get to that conversation is just asking the person, right? Oh, tell me a little bit about Lolly. What's Lolly like? Oh, Lolly doesn't do anything. Lolly just lays there. She just loves on me. Oh, wow. It sounds like Lolly makes you feel better, kind of relieves your depression. Sure does. Uh-huh. And it sounds like Pepper, she gets you outside. Yeah, we didn't even know. You wouldn't even know, right? That's how it is. You just have a conversation and you ask the person about their pet. Tell me about your pet. How does your pet make you feel, right? And that's how you're able to get the nexus between what's called the nexus, the legal term of the person's disability and how their support animal alleviates their disability, and just having a regular conversation with the person. And everyone wants to talk about their pet. Who doesn't? I mean, monsters, that's who, monsters. Okay, the owner says my dog's breed isn't allowed. Guess what? Fair housing laws prohibit discrimination based on breed or size. So you're like, sounds like a personal problem because my dog's allowed. Doesn't matter. Breed and or size, it doesn't matter. Fair housing laws are protected by that. Now, insurance companies, let's say that the homeowner says, well, my insurance company doesn't allow this certain breed. If it is a fair housing law, if someone's asked for a reasonable accommodation request, insurance companies are beholden to fair housing laws. And the burden is on the landlord and the insurance company to prove that there is not comparable coverage, right? That the coverage that is comparable is so high, it's going to be an undue financial burden. And potentially an investigation can be launched against the insurance company for disability discrimination. So again, insurance companies are held to the same fair housing standards. And then specifically outside of this, there are policy efforts to combat discriminatory breed-specific or breed discriminatory legislation. Best Friends has been doing this. Animal Farm Foundation has been on the forefront of this for years. And I just wanted to note that in California, breed-specific legislation, there is breed-specific legislation in certain cities for mandatory spay-neuter, but overall, it is banned. So to just sum up the fair housing laws, owners can't charge a pet deposit. Oh, well, I haven't even discussed that. So to discuss that, what owners can't do, they can't charge a pet deposit if you've requested a reasonable accommodation. They can't charge an extra pet fee or an insurance fee or require insurance. Like I said, there's no breed restrictions, and the no pet policy is now not legal. I recently had a management company that kept telling me over and over again that they had a no pet policy despite us requesting a reasonable accommodation request. They're like, but there's a no pet policy. I was like, I don't think you're understanding fair housing laws and how that works. So I literally just sent them like a YouTube video from the Department of Fair Employment and Housing for owners, because I'm like, please watch this. What tenants should do. So get a letter from a reliable person that has knowledge of their disability and that they recommend a support animal. A reasonable accommodation request doesn't need to be in writing, but we request everything to be in writing so that you have proof that there's something in writing. And if the request is ignored, seek legal assistance. In California, there's the Department of Fair Employment and Housing that you can file a complaint with. Also, just in nationwide, there's the Housing and Urban Development Department that you can file a complaint with, or that the tenant can file a complaint with as well. And then talking about pet-friendly housing in LA. So within the 50-mile radius of where our office is located, there was 13 affordable properties and only 2 had no pet fees, which is wild in the county of LA. So what can we do? Tips for moving with pets. So we recommend for you to have a pet resume, for the tenants to have a pet resume, the spay-neuter certificate, a vaccine record, license documentation. If you have a letter for your support animal, to have that ready. Here is like a little, sample pet resume that we have offered on our, as a resources for someone to fill out. We use Canva. My program director loves Canva. I'm like, which I'm using right now. Like, we don't get a plug for Canva, although I'm plugging Canva right now. When you, I'm like, hey, Canva. No, just kidding. I'm not. Okay. And then there was a question that came through a couple of days ago about canine CGC, canine good citizen certification, which is great. It's great for a dog to be trained and to have a canine good citizen certificate. That automatically doesn't make them a support animal. That automatically doesn't get them into housing, but that does help to be able to, put and highlight on a pet resume. I also get questions like, the owner wants to meet my pet, or the owner wants a picture of my dog. Do I have to give them one? I mean, no, not really, but also why not, right? Like, dogs are cute. It's like whenever I've had a jury trial, when I've had to take a case to trial, oh my gosh, it's like the first thing I have is like Exhibit A, awesome dog. Exhibit B, awesome dog with cat. Exhibit C, dog with all the family members, right? And it's like a little baby on top of the dog. Like, it's amazing. Who just pick the cutest photo and show your dog. My dog, Falcor, bless his heart, he passed in January. My little dream dragon, in case you guys are wondering, Falcor from the Never Ending Story. I know, adorable. He was a dog that I found on the freeway. He ended up being 100% American Staffordshire Terrier because I DNA tested him, which I thought was really funny because my sister, I digress for a second, but you guys are going to enjoy this story. My sister is, I love her. She's like an Orange County housewife who, point being, but I know, right? I can't believe this is recorded. I just said that out loud in front of, I don't even know how many folks. Point being, she's happy about that. She purchased a Labradoodle for probably an exorbitant amount of money. So the fact that my dog is 100% American Staffordshire Terrier, and then she paid an exorbitant amount of money, which I don't even think her dog's a pure Labradoodle. Let's be honest. That's just like a mutt that runs around. Bless his heart. Very cute, but what was my point about this? Oh, pet resume, showing your dog. I'm like, wow, I'm coming back. Don't worry, everyone, I'm coming back. His ears, when I found him, his ears were cut off. I mean, he looks tough. He looks like he's gonna do wrong, but he wouldn't do anything. Like, truly, the other 2 dogs back in the day that I used to have would fight, and then he would just like stare at them. And if they ever went to bite him, he'd scream out. Like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, don't hurt my baby. So I was happy to introduce my dog to the owner, right? Like, yeah, of course, meet him. Because if you just see a photo of him, you're going to think he's going to kill and attack you. And when you meet him, you're like, oh my gosh, he doesn't do anything. I'm like, shh, be quiet. I'm single in LA and walking through the night. Don't tell anybody. And I wouldn't. If people would be like, does he bite? I'd be like, I don't know. It depends. Nothing. It depends on nothing. He wasn't going to do anything. So no, you don't have to show your owner the dog, but also why not? If your dog's awesome. I mean, if your dog's going to attack them, Akko Taco, which means awkward, as my 17-year-old niece would say, if you guys want to be hip on the language. So a pet resume is great. So just remember, Landlords can't require an additional pet security deposit, insurance, or charge pet rent for assistance animals. Okay, for assistance animals. And also specifically in California, security deposits include pet deposits. Meaning for those of you that are in California and let's say are receiving grant funding for pet deposits, I want you to be very careful and feel free to reach out to me. Our contact information is going to be at the end, that it is not going over the legal limit of security deposits because a landlord can't do that. So then you're just like funding a landlord with more money that they don't need. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Okay, where do we go from here, and how can we all get involved then as we wrap this up? So housing is a right for all, for pets, for humans. If we want to keep a person housed, then by default, we're trying to keep their pet housed as well. So I'm a big advocate for pet inclusive housing with no pet fees. I know I'm going to repeat this again, with no pet fees. That means no pet rent. That means no higher security deposit. That means not advocating for landlords to have higher security deposit for pets. A report recently, or about a year ago or 2 years ago, came out stating that the damage that pets do is less than $250. So the current security deposit that's being covered just in general is going to cover pet damage. So I know that there could be a wanting to play nice with landlords, right? And wanting to be like, oh, this is so business savvy for you. You can collect, $1 bazillion more in fees, because tenants with pets, the same report says that tenants with pets stay longer. It is hard to find pet inclusive housing. It is hard to find. So they stay there. Tenants stay there. That doesn't make it okay then to capitalize on that and be able to get more fees on that, right? If we're truly trying to be pet inclusive, if we're truly trying to keep people with their pets together, then we shouldn't be advocating for pet fees in any way, shape, or form. Pet inclusive housing means people on their pet should be able to remain there, because having pet fees, what does that do? It disproportionately affects low income people of color, right? Fact is what happens with that. A second thing that you can do that's outside of the animal welfare world that is exciting is advocating for what's called a right to counsel. What is that? I'll let you know. Right to counsel is ensuring that every tenant that's being evicted has a guaranteed right to an attorney. Every low-income individual, frankly, every person that's being evicted guarantees a right to an attorney. It's kind of like the public defenders of the housing world. This is already happening in New York, in the state of Washington, in Philadelphia. And here is like a map. You can, here's a link to a website you can see whether this is happening in your state or city or county. And so you can advocate for a right to counsel. I find it a little bit, crazy. If we're going to be evicting people, they should at least be able to guarantee a right to an attorney. 90% of landlords have attorneys, while 90% of tenants are unrepresented. So it is a very unbalanced system. The legal system is already unbalanced as it is, and this creates even a more of an unbalance. Advocate to end discriminatory insurance policies. Get involved, right? Reach out to the insurance commissioners. The more voices that are out there, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. Advocate for rent control in your local city, county, and state. In order to be able to have people be able to pay their rents, be protected, we need rent control protections. And at the end of the day, if we really want to make a difference in homelessness and ensuring that people and pets remain together, we advocate to abolish evictions, y'all. It sounds revolutionary and it sounds crazy. Like, what do you mean? What's going to happen then if people don't pay their rents? What's going to happen? They're like, oh my gosh, they remain housed. Who's going to pay for it? I guess we cross that bridge when we get there, right? I guess unless we fight for it and we ensure and we are being humanitarian with one another, then we won't know what that looks like on the other side, right? It's fear isn't a bad thing. Fear allows us to see something in a different way, right? And so if we're fearful of what it looks like to abolish evictions, that just means that you have the opportunity to look at that in a different way. And so I'm like, I love quotes, and I've shared this quote before when I was at the Animal Welfare Conference. But to make a revolution, people must not only struggle against existing institutions, they must make a spiritual leap and become more human beings. In order to transform the world, they must transform themselves. And in intertwining housing and pets, that's what we're doing, right? We are revolutionizing how we are advocating for both people, for their pets, and making a change that is very much needed. And then at the very end, I'll tell you guys who I know. You guys like, how didn't say this in the beginning? Because all the other stuff is more important. At Heart LA, what we do is we provide education and outreach by virtual trainings to animal welfare organizations, to homeless shelter providers, legal services as well. We provide free legal representation to prevent evictions. And so in LA County, we have a program called Stay Housed LA that is kind of like the right to counsel, but not actually, it's just a program. And they provide eviction defense. What Heart LA does is provides eviction prevention. So at the 3-day notice stage, or if someone's being verbally threatened, we're there to prevent the evictions in California. Technical assistance, providing any advice and resources. So even as we're growing little by little, hoping to provide advice and resources to folks out of state, out of California. And then also policy advocacy is what we do. We'd like to thank, and like, yes, Maddie's Fund, our funders, and everyone that, that have brought us here today with us. And with that, here's our contact info. The slides will be shared and all of that. But here's the contact info for us. I'll also throw my email in the chat, and I am ready for questions and ready to look at, and that's Falcor, in case anyone was wondering. Look at that. See, look at that little face. He's adorable. Yeah. Okay.
Diana.
Stop share.
Thank you. Let's all give thank you. That was so incredible. We have about 3 minutes left on the call, but I could not interrupt because I don't know about anyone else, but I have learned so much in the short period of time and could listen to you, as other people have said in the chat, all day long. There's a lot of questions in here. I think you covered a lot of them, but I think there's so much information here. What's one thing that you would want people to take away from this talk today, Diana?
What you can make a difference. You can make a difference, that your voice is important, that when someone with a pet is in any way at your shelter or calling your animal welfare organization is saying, my owner, or I'm having a housing related issue, that you have the tools and the knowledge to at least start a conversation with them to help them realize they don't need to surrender their pet and they can keep their pet, right? You have that power within you, and you can help that person keep their pet together. We don't need to foster, and fostering is great, but we don't need to get to that step. We can keep the family together, and we can keep them together with their pets and housed. You have that power, and housing is a right. From abolish evictions.
And just to say to everyone, Diana is an attorney, a practicing attorney in California, and as this incredible organization. Yes, so this is all legal information, and housing is a right. So we're so grateful that Maddie's Fund is supporting your organization and has supported this call. And what I would ask everyone here, because I know for me, I thought of, I need to share this with other people. It's just so important. Think of one person that you can share this information with, a website link, the link to the forum, or the link to the recording, and it'll be up later today. Who needs to hear this? Thank you all so very, very much. Thank you again, Diana. And we will stay tuned for the Maddie's Pet Forum, because we'll be able to answer questions there, and there will be links to the recording and to the slide deck.
Thank you, everyone, so much. And feel free to reach out to me for any questions. Yay. Have a great week. Woo, woo.
Thank you for bringing the energy. Woo.